Yeah, what's up? I wanted to do a quickie podcast today just because I haven't really done any in a while. And I figured a good topic to kind of start on would be fear. Dun dun dun. I don't even know if you guys can really hear me. I might have to speak up a little louder. But yeah, the reason I'm choosing this topic in general really is just because, I feel like fear is one of those common emotions that we all experience. I mean, it's archetypal, it's sadness, happiness, pleasure, all that shit. But fear is this interesting one because I feel like none of the other emotions drive you to commit towards like a predetermined action than like those. Obviously, pleasure is another one. To keep I need that pleasure again. But like I feel like fear is one. The fear of loss, the fear of pain, the fear anything really. I mean, there's an infinite amount of fear. Fear of clowns, fucking whatever you have a fear of. But it's the idea of like fear itself that's kind of interesting because obviously it's multidimensional in the sense that like it's an attribute that can be attached to really situations, people, subjects, object, all that type of shit. But I just find it interesting in the terms of the sense that like fear seems to be one of these like overriding emotions that kind of dominates our life. I mean, like think about how war and all these things that are set up, for because people are afraid. Like people fight over fear, the fear of terrorism, the fear of their us versus them, all these things. And it's just interesting because like I feel like fear, just like a shadow, because a shadow doesn't really exist. It's the absence of light. It's a posterior attribute. So like it's not something inherently that exists. It's nothingness, and nothingness isn't something. Even though you could say that this base is something. I mean, everything's something if it's something. But regardless, I'm getting a little too fucking hippy dippy here. But yeah, like the idea of fear is just like I feel like it takes over a lot of people's lives, and if you can find ways to just even if it's a small, like overcoming of a small obstacle for yourself. So we all have, shit in our lives. I feel like that, we have to overcome, or we wouldn't be here. And we're all trying to, whether it's raise a family or find a perfect job or pursue an adventure, or start a craft, or whatever it is, or even this for me, podcasting, or just making videos for people and being able to freely talk and talk about what I want is this idea of fear and just like even making this, I was like, all right, well, how do I talk about this? Like, or what's going to be engaging, or what will people listen to? But like I've kind of realized at this point that if people are going to listen, they're going to listen anyways, and they're going to either agree or they're not going to agree. But you can't get too caught up into the perception of what people are going to think of the outcome of something you haven't even started yet. And like I feel like that's what happens to a lot of us is that we have these dreams, these goals, these desires, aspirations to be a certain person or whatever, but we can get gridlocked into a certain pattern of behavior, people's expectations of us, especially friends and family, because that's the hardest thing. Is like when someone's seen you your whole life and they're like, you are fill in the blank, Michael Jordan, and I have an idea of who I think Michael Jordan is, and people who don't know me and they're just seeing this video, I'm Michael Jordan. I'm the white Michael Jordan from Maine. People who know me, you already know that. So, but just the idea, like the ego, MJ, Michael Jordan, like what is that? And then each friend I have would have their own interpretation depending on how I interacted with them, their experiences with me, how they perceive me now, my history, all these things. So, and then my family would be different, my girlfriend would be different, people that don't like me, completely different, so people's perception of me, there's a million different versions of me probably floating around. But I think it's it's an inner perception, like say for me, to think about what other people are perceiving me as. It's like, how do I want to be defined or perceived and labeled in a category? And it's like, I don't. I want to be infinite. I don't want to be put in a fucking box. But I feel like the fear for a lot of us is that if we start moving outside the predetermined edges that have been carved for us by our actions and past history and behavior that kind of paints the picture of the ego of who you are, people, when you start acting different than, like, say, you did in the past, people are like, oh, there's something wrong with you. What's up? What do you, I mean, it depends on if it's a negative change or a positive change. But even something that can be positive for you, you're growing, you're becoming, like, I'm trying to think of an example. I don't know. Say you used to smoke cigarettes or something crazy, and now you're not smoking anymore, but you have friends that smoke cigarettes. Like, they're gonna probably give you shit, you know what I mean? Like, you're just gonna feel this, even though it's a positive thing for you, the fact that you're quitting and the fact that like you're gaining life back and all these things may not seem positive to the people around you that are smoking, because they wish, oh, I wish I could, they'll just start giving you shit, I feel like. I mean, that seems to be the case where like, oh, pussy, like, people just kind of want to do what they want to do, and their perception of you and how you make your own decisions are really neutral. Because like, say you had a friend who didn't like what you were doing, it's not really up to your friend to decide what it is you or you're not doing. I mean, regardless if it's not healthy for you or others, then that might be something for someone who actually cares about you to bring up. But I feel like most of the time, sorry, I know I'm rambling, I'm trying to come back to fear. Even in friendships, there's the fear of like, will my friends not like me as much if I act a certain way? Or will I lose my friends if, I do this, or they see me do that, or etc., fill in the blanks. So we all kind of wear this fucking crystallized mask that we, acquire over time through, this is who I am, this is what I've done, and this is how people know me. And I just find it interesting because I feel like a lot of the time that makes it harder for people to grow or work outside the box, especially if you're still living in the town you grew up in. Then it's really fucking hard because, like, you're just seeing the same people every fucking day. They're like, oh, hey, it's so-and-so, but there's no room for expansion in that person's brain. They've already got you labeled, categorized, like, this is what he's done before, she, or whatever, fill in the blank. And it's easier for people to just define and label people and judge them so simply and put them in a box, because we don't have the time in the day to fucking figure one motherfucker out compared to all the other motherfuckers you're gonna meet out there. So, it's a lot easier to just categorize like, oh, hippie, pothead, this guy's doing too much, psychedelics, this person's an athlete, that person's a musician, whatever. When really we're all kind of multi-dimensional. Like, we're more than just, a few things that we do or say. But I feel like a lot of us get held to, the accountability should be there, but like, being held to the things you say, of course. I mean, you've said them, so you should be responsible for what you've said or how you've interacted with people. But I feel like there's a bold line when it comes to stuff like that, because you could have said something in the past you may not inherently, like, comedians say shit all the time they don't believe. They just say it. Trying to make people laugh doesn't mean they believe it or think it, and they're thinking, like, oh, this is how I think, but people, a lot of the time, you bring up your point of view in an argument or whatever, and it's like you've been crystallized as the enemy or opposite of them, whatever. Like, they've just labeled you that as in like their mind and their filing cabinet of who you are. You're just there. And so I feel like perception has a lot to do with fear, in the same sense that, like, when the sun hits the body, a shadow's created, but the shadow doesn't really exist. So there's a perception of something that exists that's not really there. Because the shadow's not really there, it's the absence of light creating something that's a posterior attribute that's attached to the subject, which is you. So, like, a shadow in and of itself, it's not there. I mean, we have to define it and label it, so we want to give it a name and a designation so that way we can talk about it and stuff. But quantitatively and things like that, and qualitatively, it's nothing. So, just like a delusion or something like that, there's nothing. The only thing that is to it is the perception of the viewer's belief in it, so to speak. Like, we believe that there's a shadow there, even though there really isn't. We just have to form it and give it a name and a concept to think about nothing, which is weird to think about. So the same thing with fear, and I feel like fear, obviously, false evidence appearing real, fear, blah, 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 F-E-A-R. But, like, I really do kind of believe that, in the sense that I feel like a lot of fears are based on our perceptions, obviously, and our perceptions are all based upon how we think people view us. And that's interesting in and of itself, because a lot of the time I think that and it's not for everybody, I'm sure there's people out there who legitly don't fucking like you. And they may have no reason at all, or whatever. It's just they don't like your fucking face, or how you talk, or my voice, or your beard, or it doesn't matter. And if you're a lady, not your beard. They don't like your tits, your ass. They don't like that you're doing better than them, or they don't like your hair color. Fucking, I don't know. Everybody has a thing they don't like about people. You can just immediately see someone that I don't really like that guy, and that's understandable. Like, you have that right. You're a human being. You don't have to like every fucking thing or person. Like, that's. But I feel like it's this perception of how we think that we're being perceived that induces fear in our mind, because the fear is not really there. It's not a real thing. It's not happening. Fear only exists up until like the moment the thing happens. Then it happens, and I feel like a lot of the time people, unless you be murdered or something crazy, like like you're fear. Like say you're going skydiving, all the way up to the point of the fucking jump, like you're like, I'm shitting my pants, and then once you've fallen out the fucking side of the plane, you're falling. It's like it is happening. There's no room for fear. There's just adrenaline and fucking like this is it. And then you get off and you're like full of fucking like a high of like holy shit, that was crazy. I want to do that again. Where was all that fear before? Where did that go? What was that? That was yourself manifesting something that was never real, based on the perception of the scenario or event going wrong. Like what if I jump out of this plane and my parachute doesn't go out, or I die? Like what if today is the day I die? So I feel like, obviously it's fear of physical harm and other things. Fear is intimately wrapped into more than just, perception and things like that. There's a lot more variables at work. And, a lot of parallel stuff too, like the difference between fear and anxiety, or fear and horror, fear and fright, Like there's just obviously we have different definitions for each one of those words because they're a certain designation of something that's close but not quite. So like that's why there's a different word, and that's why there's a difference between fear and fright. They might be very, very close in terms of their definition, but they're parallel in the sense that, yeah, they're kind of talking about something similar, like this overwhelming negative feeling coursing through the body that causes cognitive, whatever problems and escalations of whatever, heart palpitations and all these increased motor, whatever you want to say scientifically, that happens because of the feelings that are induced. And I feel like, whether you're frightened or whether you're horrified, either way, like that feeling is an overwhelming, just a gut-wrenching, parallel feeling. You have different words to describe something slightly different because visually or cognitively how you perceive the events may be in a different fashion than just straight up fear. I mean, you could have a fear of something that you haven't even seen yet, and then you can be fucking horrified about something you've seen, like a dead body or something like that. Or you can be frightened by something that wasn't real. So like it's interesting how that we have different designations for all these different things. But regardless, the idea of fear, and I feel like that's what is holding back everybody, because on the other side of fear is success, as everybody says, but getting to success, is hard enough in and of itself, because a lot of us let ourselves, wow, I apologize, I shouldn't be fucking hiccuping during this, shame on you. I feel like a lot of us, we all have our dreams, our aspirations of what we really want to do in life. And I'm assuming most of you know, if you're watching, you're probably working or doing something that you maybe doing something you don't really want to do with your life, but you're doing it. Or I'm assuming some of you, maybe not all of you. I'm sure some of you, smoking pot and whatever. But I guess the biggest thing I want to have people take away from this is to start examining your fears. Like start confronting them. What is it that scares you? And why? Why does that scare you? And analyze it. Meditate on that fucking shit. Try to overcome your obstacles, because that's how you become a more complete and enlightened person. But, fear is just one of those interesting topics, I feel like, because, like I said, on the other side of fear is success. If you can overcome those obstacles and keep pushing forward, you're a warrior. And in more in the sense in a physical way. It's like a spiritual, mental warrior. In all senses of the word, you're overcoming obstacles and still pushing forward. Despite the challenge, it's going to be challenging, nobody's having it easy, but I feel like we all just have our own different versions. We have our own, intimate fears about, like, what if I have a kid and my husband leaves me, or what if I, buy this house and it doesn't work out, or it floods, like, there's a million different fears you can have about a million different decisions you can have in your life, and it's interesting because depending on how you decide to make the choice based upon your perception of the fear of a scenario, you can either automatically go towards the negative and never go down a route that could bring you prosperity and success because of self-defeatism, because you're too scared of the results or the reality of what could happen. And I feel like the only reason you would be scared of the reality of something that would happen that would be negative is because you're not confident in your ability to bring about a positive one. So I feel like confidence and fear are two things that are intimately, interconnected between each other. And I feel like maybe the higher your confidence level and your ability to bring about, high levels of motivation and, just feelings of success and well-being in your life translates directly into your perceptions of fear in the world. And I mean, that's That's a bold statement. It's not backed by any fucking facts. It's just me saying some shit in the moment. I'm sure it could be disproved or proved. I don't know. I'm not going to take the time to do it. I'm just making a statement, a generality. But, you know, I do definitely believe in the ability to, you know, put the fucking self-defeatism aside. You know, you gotta do stuff in life, and you can't be afraid, because we're all gonna fucking die anyway. Isn't that pretty scary? So why aren't we doing some fucking cool shit in the middle of that? You know, like, we're all gonna find out what it is after, so what are you afraid of? Because the ultimate, if you're gonna be afraid of anything, be fucking afraid of, well, you know, the things you're doing to people and how that's going to affect. I mean, it depends on what you spiritually believe, I guess. I don't fucking know. I'm rambling at this point. Starting to lose focus. But I guess overall, just start a, you know, little bit by bit, day by day. Just start trying to attack your fears. It's the only way I feel like anyone can really, you know, make progress in this world and be situated in a more positive and successful frame in their life. Whether that's, you know, hey, I want a family. Hey, I want, you know, a really cool job that pays me well. I want, you know, XYZ car, plane, boat, fucking possession. I don't know. But I feel like, you know, fear is what's stopping a majority of us. And like I said, for myself, like, I have a hard enough time fucking collaborating myself into a synthesis, so to speak, like, to focus enough to make these. So that's my fear, is like, I love to talk. I know that if there was someone here with me right now talking, I'd be talking forever. We record it and I go on forever. But when I'm sitting here by myself, my biggest fear is like, what the fuck do I say? Like, am I gonna forget it? Am I like, what the fuck? Like, I guess just formulating myself in a way that's presentable to people, entertaining, but at the same time informative, and just having this all kind of stream off the tongue right as I'm going. So it's kind of like a verbal salad or diarrhea, whichever you prefer mentally or visually to dive into here. But yeah, I don't know. I just felt like I needed to make this today because I really haven't been making many podcasts, and I feel like the big reason for that is every time I go to make one, I have fear. I'm like, okay, well, how am I going to be perceived, or like, who am I, like, what am I presenting? And like, that's why I like podcasting at the same time, because it's causing me to formulate myself in a way that I can articulate both my thoughts, and then at the same time provide people information on things or subjects or just stuff that's off the top of my head that I really want to talk about. And I feel like they're all kind of common things that, you know, we all go through in life. You know, they're pretty archetypal. Everybody's going to experience fear, anger, sadness, happiness, pleasure. All of those things are going to happen in the human experience, hopefully, for everybody. And it's probably going to be pretty fucking hard to make it through your life. With the negative ones are easier, obviously, to experience than the positive ones, but I don't know. But anyways, I figured I'd bop in today and give you guys a little fucking talking on fear. Don't be fearful. Follow your dreams and do what you gotta do. Alright, guys, have a good day. The Conquest Podquest. Yo, motherfucker Conquest, a.k.a. Michael Jordan, is motherfucking out.